Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Sports Ball Talk Show.
We're back.
We are going to give our slightly past mid-season end-of-year awards. Things like MVP, O-Roy, D-Roy, D-Poi, that type of stuff. We're going to go through all of them.
Nothing of what he said was actual words. He meant Defensive Player of the Year.
D-Poi. Let's start with D-Poi. Who's your Defensive Player of the Year?
I want to say, and I hate this, but he's been balling out lately. Max Crosby.
Okay. That, I think, is pretty much the number one answer because he does lead in nearly every stat. But my answer isn't Max Crosby. My answer is Myles Garrett. And here's the reason that I don't like Max Crosby for it is because he has played like 150 more snaps than any of the other players in the conversation. So naturally,
he's going to have higher point totals.
But obviously, he's still a monster. He gets triple teamed and so breaks out and gets tackles, gets sacks. Like, he is an absolute monster.
He's a unit.
It's pretty much at this point down to guys like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and then Micah Parsons is still in there, although he's kind of fallen a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Now, my answer is Myles Garrett. Same argument could be made for TJ Watt that I'm going to make for Myles Garrett, but I think that he is basically single-handedly keeping that Browns team in it. Obviously, there's other good players on that defense. The offense is learning to step it up. But I think what Myles Garrett has done in terms of his efficiency with his snaps.
Pressure he puts on the O-line.
And him hurdling the entire special teams unit to block a kick was just disgusting. So my pick is Myles Garrett, but I don't hate the Max Crosby answer too. But
I really like the reason I'm picking Max Crosby is because one, the Raiders are just dog shit. They're bad. Now they might make a comeback with a new.
They're tied with the Bills. If you can believe that,
they are tied with the Bills. And here's the thing: they could make a comeback now, especially since they fired McDaniels. And not to mention, they're not the best team on paper by roster, but
they've got some studs.
Especially
if you look at their production last year. They got Devontae Adams, which is always a top 3 wide receiver if he's in the league. Josh Jacobs, who's the number 1 RB last year. And you got a rookie quarterback who's been balling out a little bit. Yeah. So Aiden O'Connell's been doing good.
Yeah.
And then the defensive line, obviously you got guys like Max Crosby, who alone is enough to compensate for most teams' offensive lines. And then you got a couple other guys in the secondary that can make plays every now and again. But, for the most part, it's like you said, not many stud players there. But
an improvement from what the Raiders were last year. The Raiders just often got dunked on tremendously. The Raiders put up quite a fight with the Lions not too long ago.
They did.
And the Lions right now are looking like one of the best teams in the league. So
that's why I say I think Max Crosby is a good answer because although he has obviously played more snaps, which leads to higher stats, he's still being efficient with those stats. Like he's playing 10, 15, 20 more snaps a game and he's not getting gassed enough to not be able to create pressure and stuff like that is impressive. So I don't hate that. Max Crosby probably my number 2 behind Myles Garrett and then TJ Watt's 3rd, but for me, all 3 of those are very close. I don't really feel extremely passionate about one versus the other because I think that that's one of those that if it goes to any of those 3, I don't think anyone's really going to complain too much unless you're a fan of the team that didn't get it. But let's go to Offensive Player of the Year. This one I think we're probably going to I think everyone probably agrees it's between 2 players, which is Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill. Some people say A.J. Brown, but if we're going with the receiver, I think it's got to be Tyreek.
Tyreek is balling out like crazy.
A.J. Brown has been stepping it up a lot. Like, his first couple weeks were not as good as recently, but I still think Tyreek Hill has been much more impressive. I think that the amount that he does with as few one problem that you've had with betting is you'll bet on the over for his yards and receptions and then he'll hit his over in 2 catches and he just gets benched because they're up by 40. So I think that the amount that Tyreek is able to do with fewer catches is more impressive, if that makes any sense. I think that he's a bigger playmaker for the Dolphins than A.J. Brown is for the Eagles. He has more of an impact. So I'm going with Tyreek Hill if it's a receiver, but I am picking Christian McCaffrey.
And I can respect the Christian McCaffrey pick. I mean, There was a stat, I think, on BR Gridiron. They were saying, like, if you bet every week Christian McCaffrey to have a touchdown up until, like, a certain point, you'd have millions because he got a touchdown every single week, and you just compounded what you won.
It was start off whenever he started a streak at the end of last year. I think it was when he got traded to the Niners. It might have been a little bit later, but $100, and then every bit you make, you just put it again to anytime touchdown. And this was, 3 games ago, and he continued it on for a few more. He just
recently did not.
But he tied the all-time record of 17, which is cool. Obviously he could have beat it. That would have been awesome. But, you would have made an assload of money. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey because I feel like the Swiss Army knife player that he is, in my opinion, is just more valuable
He's just such a unit for that 49ers offense, especially when you have players that go down, like Debo, he was out for a little bit. Ayuk, I think, was out for a little bit.
A short bit,
and you need someone to make up for it because then all the defense is going to shift to one guy. No, you can't cover C-Mac. No matter what, you cannot cover him.
Yeah, he's always
guaranteed. He's quite literally guaranteed nearly a touchdown every game.
Because he's right now in the NFL, he's the number one rushing running back and the number one receiving running back.
Oh yeah.
So for me, it's Christian McCaffrey. Tyreek Hill, I think, is a second. It's close, but not crazy close. Not as close as my depoy picks, but obviously we still have plenty of games left. I could see Tyreek, if he has a couple 200-yard games, like very easily could overpass that. If he ends up breaking the receiving record,
which I'm hoping he does.
Even if C-Mac hits that 2,000 scrimmage yards, I'm still going with Tyreek just because the record-breaking aspect of that, I think, ekes him over, if that makes sense.
Just a little
bit.
Because
the other thing is that Christian McCaffrey gets the ball a lot more per game because he's getting the rushing and the receiving workload. But I think Christian McCaffrey, what he's doing is just absolutely disgusting. So for me,
filthy.
Christian McCaffrey.
Bottom line, filthy.
So let's go with defensive rookie of the year.
Defensive rookie of the year.
It's mostly down to a few guys. Brian Branch, number 3. Jalen Carter, number 2. And Devin Witherspoon, number 1. For me, it's got to be Witherspoon. I think he's having a Sauce Gardner type season. Maybe not quite as good as Sauce was last year, but he's the same type of guy where he is immediately making an impact as a defensive secondary for that Seahawks. And so for me, it's got to be Witherspoon. Seahawks.
Oh yeah, Witherspoon's just been disgusting.
Yeah, for I feel like that's a pretty consensus answer. Some people say Jalen Carter, but I feel like the Eagles' defense being more talented overall gives him more of an opportunity to make plays because they can't just cover him and.
You have other people to cover on that.
Right, so you can leave him more vulnerable to making plays. But Witherspoon, obviously the Seahawks defense has improved tremendously over the last couple of years. They're trying to reestablish that Legion of Boom type defense, but they're not quite there
Witherspoon, yet. It looks like the Legion of Spoon.
Oh, Legion of Spoon, dude, they could do it.
The Legion of Spoon. That guy's insane. Have you seen the highlights of like? Just a receiver just barely catching the ball and just trucks him.
Oh, yeah.
Levels him.
Witherspoon, I think, has to just be the pick for defensive rookie of the year. Even though Jalen Carter is playing well, that Eagles defense overall is just way better than the Seahawks, but Witherspoon is making a massive impact. So, for me, it's Witherspoon. Now, offensive rookie of the year, who do you got? I feel like this is obvious, but I know some people say it's not. So, I'm curious what you say. For me, it's CJ Stroud.
I was gonna say CJ Stroud as well.
It has to be.
He completely changed that Texans team entirely, along with the coaching. You got to give credit to the coaching as well. But he had a record-breaking game not too long ago.
CJ Stroud is breaking every rookie record.
Oh yeah,
every one of them.
He's ridiculously talented for the receiving core that he has. That's not to diminish the players.
Which, one, it's not as talented on paper, and 2, they're dealing with injuries. Nico Collins, their number 1 receiver, was out for their last game against the Bengals, which, by the way, the Bengals were at home. CJ Stroud went into them with a 2-minute game-winning drive and beat the dog fuck out of the Bengals. That is something that rookies don't say, especially, which I don't really take this into consideration when I'm picking my awards, but it is worth mentioning that he is the first Ohio State quarterback to ever perform well, unless you count guys like Joe Burrow, who sat on the bench in Ohio State for a couple years. CJ Stroud is breaking the Ohio State quarterback curse. So, for me, it's CJ Stroud. Some people say Puka Nacua because he's on pace to be one of the best receivers, despite being a rookie. But for me, CJ Stroud, what he's doing is way more impressive.
Yeah, and has had much more of an impact on the team overall.
Yep.
Puka, you're great, but you also have the Cooper Kupp, and then you also have the Tutu Atwells, and then you have the Kyron Williams, and no, CJ Stroud. Oh God, he's
nothing.
Everything.
He's just doing it. So that's my pick. What about Coach of the Year? This one I think is going to be one of the more closely debated ones, and I'll give you a few of the top picks right now.
Can I give you my pick right now?
Well, yeah, go ahead and give me your pick.
Dan Campbell.
Okay, that's one of the ones I was going to mention. So one of the top betting odds is Dan Campbell. Obviously, because of what he's doing with the Lions, making them true Super Bowl contenders, with the Lions' history being dog shit, and just 2 seasons ago they were 0-10-1, celebrating their first win, and 2 years later they're legitimate Super Bowl contenders. What Dan Campbell's done is incredible. I love Dan Campbell, biting off kneecaps, getting knocked down, biting off the other kneecap. I love it.
The balls that man has to run a fake punt
on your own 17 in the first game of the season against the reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champions of the world is. He has to carry his balls in a wheelbarrow. Dan
like
Campbell.
In South Park.
Dan Campbell is a menace.
Yeah, he's filthy, and he knows how to utilize his playmakers. He saw the talent in Goff. He knew what he was getting with all his players, and hey, that Jahmyr Gibbs pick. Fantastic.
He's finally getting his carries.
They finally know how to utilize them.
Oh yeah. And one thing I'll say that you can very rarely say. Usually when you talk about teams being scrappy, they're mid or bad. I don't think I've ever called a team scrappy that's been one of the best in the league, but the Lions are scrappy.
Oh, yeah.
They have the ability to make a play off of nothing in garbage time situations because Dan Campbell's coaching style is so unique. His play calling is so unique. They have a Swiss Army knife of weapons everywhere. David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs in the backfield, one of the best backfields in the NFL. You've got Amon-Ra, who's been a monster the last 8 weeks. I think he has several 100-yard. Every one of them has been 100-yard games. He has one 200-yard game, nearly a touchdown every week, and you got other guys like Jameson Williams coming back. He's
I would
playing
also
well.
argue like Amon-Ra for offensive player of the year.
If he keeps pace, oh yeah. And then you got Sam Laporta, who's a rookie tight end, but he's one of the best in the league right now, which is disgusting.
So good.
That's the argument for Dan Campbell. Now, I don't know if you know, I don't know if you even thought about this guy, but Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings.
Yes.
They're now 6-4 when they were supposed to be a trash ass worst defensive league team.
I could see Kevin
what they're
O'Connell.
doing with pulling Josh Dobbs off of a 2-day signing and going in and beating the Falcons at home and all these other things, becoming legitimate playoff contenders, is incredible.
Yeah,
what Kevin O'Connell's doing.
You're out your starting quarterback. You're out your star receiver for most of the season.
Alex Mattinson didn't pan out like they wanted to.
No.
The defense got chopped up to nothing, and they're 6-4 with a pretty healthy lead over anyone else in making a wildcard spot. Kevin O'Connell is doing something special.
Yes.
No one's talking about that. And then the third guy.
There's a reason the Rams love them.
And then the third guy, and my pick. This guy that I'm going to mention is my pick, with Dan Campbell being 2 and Kevin O'Connell being 3, is DeMeco Ryans. Rookie head coach for the Houston Texans, 5-4. Currently, if the season ended today, they would be in the playoffs. The Texans.
I could see that.
And here's why I'm going to take DeMeco Ryans. Same reason as CJ Stroud, very little talent on that team. He's a rookie head coach. It's his first time ever doing it. And the reason I say it's him over Dan Campbell is because the expectations for the Lions, as much as the Lions sucked and everything that's happening,
they had higher expectations.
What they're doing now is what was expected. Now, obviously, executing and expecting are two different things, and it's still very impressive. Nothing against Dan Campbell, but that was expected. The Texans were still expected to be the worst team in the AFC this season.
This is supposed to be a rebuild year for them.
Yeah, get CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, and then get him some experience, and then go next year. Maybe the only team that was projected to be worse in the AFC was maybe the Patriots, maybe the Raiders or the Broncos, but it was supposed to be the Texans. And now they're in the playoffs. They beat guys like the Bengals. They are 1 win away. If they beat the Jags in 2 weeks, they're winning the division. They not only are in the playoffs, but they are winning the division, which is unheard of. That is not something that anyone expected. So DeMeco Ryans is my pick because of
everyone's
just because
futures for the NFC South. The AFC South is just going.
Yeah,
just going
he is so much better than Trevor Lawrence is right now. Eons better than Trevor.
Lawrence,
every single metric you can find, plus the fact that he has less talent around him. CJ Stroud is outperforming. But that's my coach of the year pick. You got Dan Campbell. I got DeMeco Ryans. I think both are safe.
I think both are.
Are both fine. I'm not going to be mad if either one wins. But really, the crux. Oh no, we'll go to the MVP last. Let's do comeback player of the year next. Who do you think is going to be the comeback player this year? The popular pick right now is DeMar Hamlin because he died in the middle of an NFL game on the field, and he's back. I will mention that he's only played like 3 snaps all season.
Yes.
One thing that I think people forget about DeMar, not to diminish what he did, because coming back from that is obviously unbelievable, but he was a third stringer.
Yeah.
There's obviously nothing against him. Like, what he's done is incredible, but he's a third stringer, and so it's not like he's coming back and playing at like an insanely high level. He's not really playing at all. So that's not my pick, but I want to hear your pick first for comeback player of the year.
Comeback player of the year. I want to pick Tua.
Okay.
Tua Tagovailoa. And the reason being, yes, the concussion. He actually got hurt.
Like 3 concussions last year.
7 concussions. I don't even know how many.
Concussion again.
But he was rather hurt the season. He was going towards the MVP. He was one of the MVP candidates.
100%.
And then it all falls off. Now he's back. He's back this year, better than ever. I like that sleeve you got, Tua. I like that sleeve.
He's back in the MVP conversation, too.
And he's back in the MVP conversation, and he's doing a great job with the Dolphins. Now we haven't won any hard games. I will admit that. Regardless, he's still one of the top 5 quarterbacks for yards. He's great at
every stat.
Touchdowns.
Basically,
every
top
stat,
5.
he's top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And considering all the head trauma he received last year.
Yep.
He's been doing pretty good. I mean, I can't think of anybody else that's really come back from something too crazy. I mean, who do you got?
My guy's not Tua, and I think once I say my guy and tell you my reasons, you're gonna agree.
Yeah, I might.
Josh Dobbs. Comeback player of the year. People think it's someone coming back from an injury. It's not necessarily that. Alex Smith obviously won it when he came back from his injury, but last year Geno Smith won it. He didn't come back from an injury. He just came back from being a second string kind of trash quarterback, and then he went and took the Seahawks to the playoffs. So I got Josh Dobbs because he's doing the same thing.
Josh Dobbs performing for the Cardinals, then switching for the Vikings, performing for the Vikings
after just a day and a half or 2 days.
After just playing one game with the Titans.
And I think the Vikings make the playoffs.
Vikings can.
I think they do.
I like your pick.
I got Josh Dobbs for that thing. The Pastronaut. NASA.
The Pastronaut.
Have you not seen that? His nickname,
no, that's a new one.
The Pastronaut, dude. You know he works at NASA, too?
Yeah. Dude's a brainiac.
Yeah.
Hey, get me a job at NASA.
Yeah, I'll be your
Hey,
caddy.
we're hyping you up.
Also, I just want to say this to the Cardinals as a trash organization, which I don't like calling organizations trash, but the Cardinals didn't even have a jersey for him in the shop until he won his game with the Cardinals. But now look what he's doing. He's off to bigger and better things. The Cardinals are not going to do shit this season, and the Vikings will with Josh Dobbs. So Josh Dobbs is my comeback player of the year.
Hey, guess what? I'd pick Josh Dobbs over Kyler Murray any day of the week.
Yeah, that's what I like to see. Hey, Josh Dobbs got a rushing touchdown this past week. I don't think Kyler did.
Kyler did.
Well, he tied him.
Yeah.
And there's Josh Dobbs, who no one even knew the name of before the season. So, yeah, I didn't watch the Cardinals game, even though they were playing my Falcons. I couldn't watch it because I knew Kyler. I knew the Cardinals were probably going to win because Kyler was back, but everyone's going to look at that and say, oh, the trash Cardinals beat the trash Falcons. But it's like, well, Kyler being back is huge.
Falcons should have won that.
They should have. I'm not going to say they shouldn't have won it, but Kyler being back is huge. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that yet.
Hey, but Bijan played well that game.
He actually got the ball.
He actually touched the ball. He got a touchdown.
They used him as a punt returner. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Yeah, so their idea of getting him more involved, I was going to say, oh, you want him more involved? Let's put him on punt returning.
Yeah, and then when he gets leveled.
Yeah, he's out for the season, and you just threw away one of the most important
Arthur Smith, give me your job. You don't deserve it.
Or get fired, Arthur
Give
Smith.
Give it to us.
But let's go to MVP.
Us.
Let's go to MVP. Let's talk about MVP. I want you to tell me who your MVP pick is. I'm not even going to list off the favorites because I think we all know who some of the favorites are. It's typically a quarterback award, but obviously it could not be. But I want to know your number one favorite, and then if you got a couple guys that you think are close, I want to hear those too. But go ahead and give me yours.
You go first.
No, I said you go first.
I'm telling you.
Because you're not going to agree with me, and I'm gonna blow your mind with my pick, so I want you to go first.
MVP.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really thought much about this, and I'm going to be honest with you. That could be anybody. I was going to say Lamar Jackson, but not anymore.
Just even after one game? Only one bad game?
It's after a few.
No, he's been playing good up until last game. He's definitely one of my top 3 picks.
I feel like he's slow.
But the other thing you got to think about is there's guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow that are usually in that conversation that aren't really this season.
I want to say Jared Goff.
Jared Goff is one of my top. He's my top.
I
want to
pick Jared Goff.
Okay, what about not Tua?
No, not Tua.
Okay, so is your pick Jared Goff officially?
My pick is officially Jared Goff.
Give me your reasons, and then I'm going to obliterate it with my pick.
No. Just Jared Goff. There's no other reason that you need. Okay, realistically speaking, I mean, Jared Goff has almost never been picked off at all this season. That's one thing. He's not turned over the ball a lot this season. Another thing, it doesn't matter the quality of receiver. It doesn't matter if they're a superstar or not. Jared Goff is thinking about the game as strategically as possible, being quick with it, fitting perfectly in Dan Campbell's scheme, and getting the ball out to anybody. And the amount of times that I've seen the Lions convert on 4 and a mile
in their own
territory with Jared Goff, I think he deserves it. I mean, he's got that intellect. He's reading the field. Great connection with the players. Everyone gets around him, and they have confidence in Goff.
Yeah, the other thing is
you can't blame them.
Goff
knows what he's doing.
For the same reasons you would pick Dan Campbell with what the Lions are doing, Jared Goff's at the helm of that. He's the leader of that team. And so what he's doing is equally as impressive. And I will say they're the second best team in the league right now in terms of their record. Like, just the whole standings. It's Eagles, then Lions, then Chiefs. So, yeah, Jared Goff is a good pick. That might be my second pick. Maybe third is Lamar. Second is Goff. And then my number one pick, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud has to win MVP.
I could see that too.
It has to be. Here's why. All the reasons I mentioned for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Can you get 2 rewards?
Oh, yeah, you can win. Patrick Mahomes, when he won his first MVP, he won Offensive Player of the Year as well, which, makes sense. Typically, if you're the MVP...
Okay, that's why I didn't pick
him. So he... Yeah, well, my point is, same reasons as I said before, the Texans had shit expectations this season, and not only are they outperforming them, CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in the NFL this season.
So far, yeah.
The best. He has the least interceptions. He has the best touchdown-interception ratio. He has second most passing yards, which I'm going to put an asterisk next to because the guy who's ahead of him has played an extra game, and he's only 100 yards behind him.
Who's the guy ahead of him?
Sam Howell, if you can believe that.
I can believe
I love Sam Howell. He's good too.
He's balls out.
The Texans have already had their bye week, and the Commanders haven't. So really, unless he plays a game and gets less than 100 passing yards, by the end of the season, if they all keep pace, he is the passing yards leader. Mm-hmm. He is good in garbage time, good in crunch time with that late 45-second drive against the Bengals to win. He had a turnover against the Bengals, and here's what he said. He went over to D'Amico Ryans and said, "I'm going to win this game for you." That's what he said after turning the ball over.
I love that confidence.
He said, "I'm going to win this game for you. I'm going to win it." D'Amico said, "I trust you." He goes out there, 48 seconds left, drives down the field on some 3rd and 6s. I saw what he did. You ever watch those compilations of NBA where it's like the nastiest ankle breaks?
Yeah.
He did that with the football, not by running but passing. There was a read where he had his receiver running up this way, had another one coming across. Or both running up, one going kind of a straight, the other one going across. He had 2 defenders, obviously. One was covering one. He fakes a look and pass to the guy on the bottom. The defender jumps as if he's going to throw the ball and breaks his ankles on the turf, and then he launches it to the other guy and completes it for a 30-yard gain. You don't see that. It wasn't even a throw or a juke. He faked the ball so hard that he broke the defender's ankles. What CJ Stroud is doing, the season ending today, he is in the playoffs. They're 1 win away from being the division winners, which will put him in the 3rd seed or the 4th seed in the AFC. Surpassing the Jaguars, who had high expectations, the Bills, who had high expectations, and the Bengals, who had high expectations. And CJ Stroud is carrying that team.
Oh, yeah.
He's the reason he's at the helm. He is the reason that those receivers that, although they don't have as much talent, even though credit to them for playing well, CJ Stroud is making beautiful throws. It's got to be CJ Stroud.
It's got to be CJ Stroud.
I think that
I could see that.
I don't think
genuinely see that.
I think that the fact that he's a rookie should make it more impressive. Not, we can't give it to him because he's a rookie. Because that's what a lot of people are saying about it. It's okay, well, it shouldn't be him because he's a rookie. Why the fuck?
He is the most valuable player.
Shouldn't that make it even more impressive?
Yeah.
Because you also got to look at,
especially if he takes him to the playoffs. I need him to take him to the playoffs.
Yes, if he does that, then no shot he doesn't get MVP in my opinion. But you also got to think, coming into the season, he was looked at as the dumbest NFL quarterback of all time. And he said, "I don't take tests, I play football." And at the time, this is one of the only times on this show that I've been wrong. And I'll admit it. I was wrong about CJ Stroud.
Yeah, we both are.
I said, obviously, playing quarterback is a very athletic, physical game, but there's a lot of intelligence behind it. Being able to read defenses, remember all your calls, cadences, audibles, stuff like that. And I was in college it's a lot easier than the NFL. He's not going to make it. Or if he does, this might be a couple of years, kind of like
we
a Justin Fields type experiment.
Down on him.
And he has proven me wrong. Not to mention, he's also the first Ohio State quarterback of all time that's really been good in the NFL. CJ Stroud needs the MVP. As much as I clowned on him, as much as I've clowned on the Texans, I am objective and fair when it comes to these awards, and it has to be CJ Stroud. It has to be. You can make your case for someone else in the comments, but it's not Mahomes, it's not Josh Allen, it's not Joe Burrow.
It's not Kelsey, it's not Taylor Swift.
None of these skills position players. And the only person you could really put up there is maybe Lamar or Goff, but I still think that CJ Stroud, what he's doing is more impressive.
It is more impressive, yeah.
It's more impressive. Because you got to look at what he has to work with as well. Although Jared Goff is been taking people that weren't ordinarily good and elevating them, David Montgomery's always been a solid guy. Jahmyr Gibbs is a top 10 overall pick. Amon-Ra is a top 10 receiver. You got Lamar Jackson, obviously, with a thick running back core. Odell Beckham Jr. You got Hollywood Brown. Not Hollywood Brown. Is it?
No, Hollywood Brown's at Arizona. You're talking about Zay Flowers.
No, there's a... No, I'm not talking about Zay Flowers.
OBJ.
I can't remember who the guy I'm talking about is. He got injured last year. He was out for the whole season.
Oh,
Rashad Bateman. I don't know why I said Hollywood Brown. Rashad Bateman. I think he used to be over there. But and then Mark Andrews. Those are all solid guys. And CJ Stroud is doing it with nothing, including injuries on that team. Like I said, his number one receiver, Nico Collins, was out for the entirety of the
He's got
Bengals
taped
game.
down.
And also,
Bobby Trees.
Damian Pierce is out too.
Yeah, Damian Pierce hasn't been in. It's Singletary's been playing.
And Singletary went for 100 yards on a TUD against the Bengals. So CJ Stroud, I need it. I want him to win, and then I want to buy the only Texans jersey I will ever buy in my life, which is a CJ Stroud jersey because he just needs it. So those are our picks for our end of year awards, assuming no massive injuries or pop offs or dip downs. If you disagree with any of them, let us know in the comments.
You will not disagree with any of them.
You can't. I give you nothing but facts. But if you do, let me know. And close this out, Gian.
Stay frosty, my friends.